George and Meaghan. How are you both?
Good. How are you?
Great. How are you?
Good. So I'm based in Vermont. Where are you guys?
Brooklyn.
Nice.
Yeah, we're like a mile apart from each other.
We don't
Only
see each
ever
other
see-
enough, though.
Yeah. A mile here is like basically like a whole nother state.
Meaghan, we're not a mile apart, by the way. We're like a 10-minute walk from each other.
Got it.
More than 10 minutes, but whatever.
15 minutes.
So you guys are
In the bad part of South and Park Slope.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So you guys are the No Season 2 podcast. Now, before we get into your podcast, can you just tell me how you two know each other?
Yeah, we actually met working at a thrift store in 2008, I think. Yeah, and you were already working there, and then I showed up, and I was like, what did I get myself into? Because this place was a high traffic area for some of the worst of the worst.
Oh no.
And there was we had a lot of folks who enjoyed the heroin that came into our place.
Yeah. There was a methadone clinic nearby.
It was right next door.
It was right next door. So it was a wild. We had people check bags because they didn't want people stealing. And one time a guy checked like a needle in a dog carrier, and I was like, okay, just
Wow.
right here. And they're always like, if somebody's stealing stuff, and I'm like, you do not pay me enough to like.
Yeah, I know, right?
Try and stop someone high on drugs from stealing like a $5 shirt. Like, I'm gonna need a raise for that. Thank you.
Yeah. So needless to say, we became fast friends working at this thrift store.
Yeah, and then you got fired.
I was not fired.
Oh, you weren't fired.
I was demoted, and I was like, I'm leaving.
Oh, okay.
Got
And then I stayed because I needed a job.
So what I'm getting here is that there was trauma bonding
Yeah, a lot of trauma bond.
through this job.
Yeah.
So give me the thread. Like, how do you go from, okay, we're bonding through this traumatic job experience to, okay, like we have this commonality of loving these shows that didn't get a second season, so let's do a podcast. Like, take me through that thread.
There is like, this happened, 15 years after we met. So the thread is long. I think George wanted to start one like a long time ago. And
Well, I think what happened was like during the pandemic, we were just like searching for things to do. And I am a stand-up comedian, and I'd already had the idea in my head about doing something like that during the pandemic. And then Meaghan went to go see me do stand-up like 4 years ago. Was that about right? And you see me a bunch of times do stand-up.
Yeah.
And I sort of pitched the idea, and we both were like, that sounds like fun. We should do that.
I was drunk enough to agree to
Yeah, exactly.
not realizing how much work it would be and how terrible some of these shows are.
It's work. I can
I
definitely
imagine do it with anybody else, because Meaghan and I already had that rapport of like 16 plus years of friendship.
Yeah.
Right.
And we can call each other on our BS. Well, I can call George on his BS. I have no BS to call.
I just write it down, and I'm gonna save it for later.
Yeah. Our finale episode, our series finale, you call me on everything.
Yeah. So wait. So I mean, the New York City was definitely in the news during the pandemic because, of course, it's the busiest city, and then it just turned into nothing during the pandemic. Can you describe, were you guys still working at that thrift store job?
Oh, no. That was, I had long moved on from that thrift store.
Like we even like did different careers after that.
Yeah, I've been through so many jobs.
Right. So George, how did your stand-up? I mean, I would guess it was on pause during the pandemic since nobody could do anything or go anywhere.
It is true. I mean, like I started like doing this podcast and like having like being guests on podcasts, and that was kind of what I was doing. And then Meaghan, I guess you just worked from home. Was that during that whole time? And
Yeah. I had started like, I don't work there anymore, but at the time I had started working at the Washington Post, and then like a week in, they were like, oh, everybody go home. We'll be back next week. And then it just kept like going on. And then like, I don't know, 2 years later, I quit.
Yeah.
Wait, Meaghan, okay. So I'm knowing so much about you guys. So from thrift store to Washington Post, can you tell me like what you did for the Washington Post? Yeah, go ahead.
So, I mean, I did like ad operations, which is like, I make the internet worse by putting ads on.
Wait a minute.
By putting ads on everything.
Okay, so are you So you're the kind of person responsible for making it so difficult for me to scroll through a Hollywood Reporter article.
Yeah. Basically, that was my job there. And I was there during the 2020 election. And like, for some reason, you know, people can run political ads on the Washington Post. So
You can't.
I had to set up Trump ads, and I was like, and I was like, after work, I would donate to Biden's campaign as penance for working on Trump stuff. And then one time there was just this crazy ad, and someone emailed and was like, I think the Washington Post has been hacked because Trump had an ad that was Kamala had devil eyes, laser beams, and I was like, this is not going to go over well. And it did not. And we had to pull it. And I was like, I don't know how much longer I can work here.
So you guys decided to form this, or you decided to get into the podcasting space during the pandemic. And so I know people have talked about comfort food being a big thing for them during the pandemic, whether it be literally comfort food or comfort food in the form of television. So is that what sort of got you guys going with this podcast, reviewing shows like My So-Called Life and Firefly, which you grew up with, and I'm assuming you loved?
I had actually never seen Firefly, and so that was a surprise for me watching that show. But I think it was we wanted to do something with TV because I think we both watch a lot of TV, probably more TV than the average person should watch.
Yeah.
I was raised by television.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we were trying to think of things we could do that weren't sort of I don't know, overdone, because, the podcast space is super saturated.
Yeah, that's an understatement. It's a lot.
And we got in a little late. So
it's okay.
I think we were just okay, what could we do that would maybe be a little different? And so the idea of one season shows, and if these shows should have had another season or continued on, was our main sort of I don't know, thesis of the podcast.
I think we always knew that the way we wanted to start it was definitely wanted to start with My So-Called Life, because of all the one season shows, that seemed to be one of the more popular ones.
Mm-hmm.
And doing that for me was felt like going back to high school, because the characters on the show, and the show takes place the same year that I was a sophomore in high school. So it kind of felt like, oh, this is like a high school reunion that I never even went to.
And I had watched reruns on MTV when they were rerunning it. So I didn't have a super emotional attachment to the show, which I learned a lot of people do, and do not like it when you're not super pumped about their faves. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. So my knowledge of My So-Called Life really is just when I was in middle school, high school in the 2000s, just watching those VH1 best of the 90s kind of documentaries, and that would always pop up. I've never actually seen an episode, but I just know of oh, My So-Called Life. It's on the same it's sort of on the same level as Freaks and Geeks, where this iconic, well-written show that got canceled way too soon, couldn't find an audience, and now many years later, people are talking about it as if it had 11 seasons. So can it be argued that the legacy of My So-Called Life would be affected in a negative way if it had more seasons? Do you think it was perfect that it ended at one season?
I sort of think that it not having a second season allows people to fantasize and romanticize the show, and not really, there's nothing negative to impact it, because if that second season is terrible, then that whole first season is kind of tainted by mediocre seasons that follow, and it doesn't have the same sort of, I think, life beyond its run that it currently has. I think people are able to be I really loved it, and I love these characters, and not think too hard about it. So when people come in and think a little harder about it, they're you can't say that about myself.
Yeah, I mean, for me, high school, it's supposed to end. I mean, when you think of high school, you don't think of it as oh, this happened my sophomore year, this happened my junior year. It's this happened in high school. So in essence, it was supposed to end. Granted, it may have ended too soon. That's neither here nor there, but it was supposed to end in a way that high school is supposed to end. It doesn't go on for 6 or 7 more years. some other.
Unless you're like a super senior.
Yeah, exactly. It's always supposed to end. It's supposed to end abruptly too. It's like, oh, I can't believe that now. It's now over.
Yeah.
All right. So Meaghan, know that you said some shows sucked. Was it was it My So-Called Life? Was it Firefly? Like at what point did
I
you?
would say like Firefly would probably not be a show that I would like go out of my way to watch. Like the only reason I'm watching it is for like the podcast, because I'm not like a huge like it's a space western. Like there's no aliens, there's no like, it's just like dusty space. It's not really like my wheelhouse. So like some of the episodes are good and some of the episodes are like, if I never have to see this again, it'll be too sick.
Meaghan is bearing the lead here though, because Meaghan is a fan of Star Trek. So
Yeah. But Star Trek is good. Star Trek has like aliens. It has like it's like it talks about, you know, issues in a way like, you know, that the space western does not.
But which one are you talking about? Are you talking about the original '60s series, or are you talking about the ones later on in like the '90s?
I'm a huge fan of Deep Space Nine, and I'm a huge fan of like Next Generation, and I'm a huge fan of Star Trek 4, Star Trek 6. Yeah.
And I think those shows had a second season, correct?
Yeah, those shows had multiple seasons.
So
because they were good.
Which actually brings me to this question. So when you suddenly think of those kind of shows that have had second season or beyond, you kind of think of yourself like, oh my God, we should cover this, but damn it, that kind of like disputes the point of the podcast.
Yeah, it's a little like, you know, thank God some of these shows had, you know, multiple seasons, but then it's like, oh, it would be like really good to like cover all these shows that I do love that have like multiple seasons, but you know, we've backed ourselves into a corner. Maybe we can do like no season 3. just keep building once we run out of shows to do.
Yeah. George, what do you
talk about? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. I was just asking, what are your thoughts on Firefly? Rewatching it, it seems like maybe you're a little bit more passionate about it than Meaghan is. Do you think it should have gotten a second season?
No, but it did get a movie though, and like most of the shows that were on our list and things we want to talk about, they're when they ended, the show ended. It wasn't like a few years later. So in a way, Firefly is actually kind of more of a success story than most other TV shows. It's like, because the show ends, they get canceled. There's like this online thing going on in which like it's like people love the show, and then a few years later they get a movie. Now I can't imagine or even think of another TV show that got a movie based on just a TV show. So in a way,
one season of a TV show. Yeah.
One season of a TV show too. So in a way, Firefly was kind of a success.
Yeah, it's like hard to imagine like My So-Called Life, the movie.
Exactly.
Right.
So
John from Cincinnati, the movie.
Yeah.
So what do you kind of, I'm curious as to what you guys think about like the limited series format that we see so much in streaming, because one could argue that is essentially another version, maybe a more positive version of these one season TV shows that you have looked into. Like, for instance, I don't know, the Menendez Brothers limited series on Netflix. I mean, do you think that what you do as a podcast could be sort of symptomatic of the fact that, like, you know, maybe sometimes shows could just leave it at one season and leave it at that?
I think there is that argument to be made that like some shows are better as like a limited series. I know that there's a show that I really like that came out on like Apple TV, which like they never advertise their shows, but like it was Hijack with Idris Elba, and I'm like, okay, this can only really work as like one, like a limited thing, because like how many planes can he get on that are like hijacked, right? Where he's sitting in like a luxury first class and the plane gets hijacked and then he has to like, you know, solve the problem. Like, I don't really think it works as like a season 2. It's like, oh, not again. There is that argument to be made that like, you know, you put out like 8 episodes of like bangers and then you leave it and you like walk away. And I think that some shows maybe like probably would benefit from that. I think that's probably, I mean, My So-Called Life was like, okay, they weren't intending on that, but like it happened and now people look back on it fondly. Mm-hmm. They don't like think about, you know, a terrible like season 3 when when they look back.
Well, I mean, I think of the British model because I think that's what they still do. I mean, for example, The Office. I mean, The Office started as the British show with Ricky Gervais, and I think it had like, I don't know, 5 or 6 episodes of the Christmas special, and then they were done because they just had nothing left and they just wanted to keep the quality as is. And then you go to the American Office, which is also good, but ran for like 7, 8, 9 seasons because the American model is like, hey, if people like it, let's just keep on repeating it. Let's keep on milking this cash cow for all it's worth. I don't know. I think
and people don't look back fondly on those like James Spader seasons of.
Yeah, I think he only appeared for like a few episodes in like season 8.
There's an argument to be made that maybe it went on a little too long.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it's probably a cliche argument, but I thought that when Michael Scott left after season 7, it was pretty much done because he was just kind of the heart and soul of the show. So
yeah, American model is to also bring shows back. So
yeah,
and they have an Office reboot that they're working on right now. So there you go. Nobody's asked.
I saw a trailer for a new Dexter.
Yeah, which is do we need that? Because I think we already had like a prequel and a whatever, but you're shaking your head. No, we don't need it.
No, probably not. I mean, like one of the things that I enjoy about doing this podcast, especially with Meaghan, because Meaghan and I come from like Meaghan's perspective is like the right perspective, and there's my perspective. I'm like, Meaghan, what are you talking about? That's crazy. But the reason why I enjoy doing it is because in doing shows that are only had 1 season, because they're always looking at you. Because one thing we talk about at the very end is like, could this have had a second season? Would we have watched it? What we would like to have seen? So to watch some of those British shows probably wouldn't make any sense for us and what we do.
Right. I gotta say, I'm almost jealous of your guys' format because we decided to recap Family Matters, and we would like to see it all the way through, all 9 seasons. And I mean, right now it's fine, it's great. That
9th season is
It gets a little long in the tooth, right?
Oh wait, well, let's talk about it. I mean, do you guys have any familiarity, or have you watched it growing up, and did you like it and then not like it? Like,
yeah, I grew up watching like TGIF and all those shows, so I really liked Family Matters. I mean, I wasn't a fan of like Little Richie. He was like probably my favorite character. I don't like a precocious like child. Like,
Meaghan,
not my fave.
No, Meaghan
strays. What?
Can I just tell you something, Meaghan? You and I are soulmates because like Andrew and I, we are so different on this. Like, Andrew is all about Little Richie. He is all about like any moment where Little Richie is doing that cute child actor thing where he dresses up in a tuxedo and does the moonwalk. And I can see right through it. I'm just like, no, it's bullshit. It's just bullshit.
It's not good. Not a fan. But like, I think like the first like probably like 5 or 6 seasons are like really, really good. And then you kind of get into like, we're kind of like, repeating things, or we're getting the Stefan, we're getting the like, how is this possible? And then like that last season, I think it moved to like CBS or something. Yeah. So I think the whole tone was probably like a little different. And like the magic of like, that family unit maybe is like gone a little bit. Like the characters like lose their shine a little bit. It's kind of sad. So you kind of wish that
more supposed to be a show about Carl and Harriet, and then like Steve Urkel was like just undeniable how and the show got focused on him. Yeah. The show went on and on. They start doing like don't Carl and Steve they have like missions, and they go on like really like
Yeah, science experiment missions. I think once we got like the Urkel science machine, that's when things started to get a little bit kooky. Carl and Steve, I mean, they make a great comedic duo.
They do.
Fantastic. Sure. I think they have fantastic chemistry, but
I feel like I have a bone to pick with like Carl, because I feel like he should have called Child Protective Services about like Steve's parents. Because
yes,
never.
Oh my God.
Around.
Yeah, seriously, we were talking about that in our first season recaps and kind of going into the second season. Herb and Diane, they're
we're going on vacation. We're just leaving our 13-year-old son at a home, and then like banking on our neighbors, like taking
this. And I think they're
arguably kind of annoying child.
Right. I think there was like one moment where like the parents like had to escape all the way to Wisconsin just so that they don't have to like, raise this nerdy kid. Yeah, no, there's so many examples. I mean, I think Steve's diet was like anchovy paste for a while. So yes, I agree. I agree. We've talked many a time about how Herb and Diane are just awful, awful parents.
Yeah, I guess at least he had Carl to like give him some fatherly advice.
Occasionally, when Carl wasn't like losing his shit at him for like being so annoying. Yeah.
Were you expecting like that Meaghan and I would have a deep knowledge of Family Matters?
I'm so glad that you do because we're in the show and it's always nice to meet fellow fans. But
the season in which the daughter goes up the stairs and never comes back.
Judy. So
Judy.
Here's the funny thing. That's always a myth that people talk about. But technically, if you look at her last episode, it was when Mama Winslow got married and she like walks down the aisle as one of the bridesmaids. And that's really the last time we got to see her. That being said, there have been moments in episodes where she's walked up the stairs and you never see her like for the rest of the episode. So I think it's kind of foreshadowing.
They left her at the church after the wedding.
Who knows?
We have to take in this other child whose parents abandoned him. We don't have room for you anymore.
Oh my God, it's insane. So are you guys still like going through the first season of Firefly, or did you finish it?
We finished the series and we're watching the movie, so we're recording part 2 of that tomorrow, and then I think we'll have like one more episode where we recap everything, give our final thoughts, our final like winners and losers, Sweden, our final like our final grades, and then we'll take a little break because it's hard having a full-time job and doing all this, and then we'll figure out what series we want to do next. I know a lot of people want us to do Freaks and Geeks.
Please.
And it feels a little daunting because it's like 21 episodes or something.
It's a lot.
It's and it's back when TV was, an hour-long show is actually like 45 minutes or something because there were commercial.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, so Firefly and My So-Called Life, they didn't have 20-episode seasons?
My So-Called Life had 18 or 19 and Firefly had 14, and then the movie. So not quite as long. But I know there's like a lot of like one-season shows. I found out that 10 Things I Hate About You had a show on Disney Channel. So that could be interesting because I've never seen it, love the movie, and it's hard to imagine creating a show where like Heath Ledger is who would be hot enough in that teen show to make this believable that but there's like a lot of just like random shows out there. I think there's like a one season of a Law and Order show that I'm trying to convince George to do.
Okay.
Because I love Dick Wolf universe over here.
There's like, I mean, it's like the amount of shows that we get to choose from is just an insane amount. Just from there's a Ferris Bueller's Day Off that was one season of TV that was on NBC in the late 80s, early 90s.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a bunch.
There's like a spin-off of Designing Women called Women of the House.
Women of the House.
With Delta Burke. So could be interesting. But I feel like people are really pushing like the Freaks and Geeks. But we didn't want to do 2 teen shows like back to back.
Right.
We wanted to like prove that we could,
we
stretch our talents. Yeah, stretch our talents. And that after watching Firefly, it's like, okay, maybe we should.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's like some Saturday morning cartoon that lasted for 1 year that maybe you guys could do just as sort of a way to like be so different from what you've already recapped. I don't know if you're into that kind of stuff, but
I'm sure there probably is. I know that like I remember it's not a cartoon, but it's like a show that was on Sci-Fi. I think it was called Young Hercules with like Ryan Gosling.
And
it was 1 season, but this season was like 52 episodes or something.
Like an insane amount of episodes.
Jesus.
But like they were only like half hour, so condense that. We could condense that down.
Maybe.
Watch some young Ryan Gosling pretending to be Hercules. It could be.
Now, was this before he was in the Mickey Mouse Club? After? During?
I think it was after.
Okay.
After, yeah.
Wow. Well,
before Remember the Titans, I guess?
Yeah, before Remember the Titans.
So I've watched that movie many times, and like I think it wasn't until like a few years ago where I just realized like, oh, Ryan Gosling's in this movie. It's just so weird because it just doesn't seem like
He
a movie
probably
that,
doesn't remember he's in it either. So.
yeah, it just doesn't seem like a movie that he would be in, like based on like all of like the more higher profile work that he's had later on. But
Maybe he had like his Disney contract hadn't run out yet, so
I mean, he's not in it a bunch, so yeah, that might be it.
he couldn't get out of it.
who the fuck was he in the movie though? I forgot. And Remember the Titans. Who did he play? He was in Sunshine.
Like kind of dumb or something. He's a little like
He's the non-athletic defensive back, and he's supposed to cover this guy, and the guy is just way too fast for him. So he gives his spot to Donald from Scrubs.
Oh, Donald Faison.
Donald Faison from Scrubs.
Yeah.
I didn't know you loved Remember the Titans so much that you have this.
Actually, not. It's also near where I'm from. That high school. You see what's
Where's that high school?
It's in Alexandria, Virginia. I'm from like 7 miles down the road.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. TC.
Yeah. No. To me, that's like if you want a movie that to me defines how great Denzel is, it's that movie. It's that, and it's Training Day, and I think I could put like Malcolm X close there, but yeah, no. Remember the Titans is just way up there for me. It's wonderful.
Yeah, he's doing the Denzel. I watched Training Day, oddly enough, just yesterday. I have cable. I'm gonna run just at Meaghan. I got cable, so I can put through channels. And Training Day just started. I was like, I'll watch it for another 30 minutes.
How is that?
Good.
Can I ask, how is that having cable in 2024? Like, do you have the patience for all the commercials and whatnot? Because I don't know if I could do it.
I think what it is like I like to see what else is on. And that's all it's really about. So like when I'm flipping through the channels is a real thing. Like I can't sit down and watch somebody who's like, oh, I'm going to watch this. Like if I start watching TV, I'm like, what else is on right now? That way I can flip back and forth.
You need picture in picture.
Total. Which I have.
I couldn't get rid of cable. Like I went to like cat sit for my brother like a couple years ago or whatever, and he doesn't have cable, and he has like like
YouTube TV
flipping through all like the different streaming things.
No, it's not.
I just want to watch the episode of Vanderpump Rules that's on right now. Like,
wow.
I just like, why don't you have in the year of our Lord? Why don't you?
And Meaghan knows this. I'm not a binger of television. Like I don't enjoy watching TV shows like back to back to back. So Netflix to Netflix model's not for me.
Really?
Or, like I like to watch something, let it sit, and then like pick it back up again in like a week later. Because that's just how I enjoy television. Like if I watch a bunch of shows in a row of a TV show, I can't remember what I just watched. Like, oh, when did that happen? Like I need a moment to sit with it.
Or like there's if I've already seen the show.
If I've already seen it, The Sopranos, The Wire, of course. But like other stuff, I'm like, I can't watch it. I gotta have the discipline to watch it.
You couldn't watch all 9 episodes of Menendez Brothers back.
Oh no. Yeah, no. My wife and I, we had to like, we had to take a break quite a bit. I mean, my co-host Andrew, he's the type to like go through that like nobody's business, but there's graphic.
We watched like we would watch like 2 episodes, and I would be like, oh my God.
It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a very sexually graphic show, and that's just like the monologues that they have. And I would like, I don't think when we were watching it, I'm not sure like my boyfriend knew about like the Jose Menendez of it all, so he was like extra surprised. Me neither.
I'm like, oh, that's fun for you right now.
Yeah. I literally thought it was as simple as like, oh, these 2 rich boys killed their parents, but once they got into like all this deep like child molestation stuff, it was like, oh, okay. Right. For some reason,
it's not a good time.
It's not. It's
gonna be all Milli Vanilli, and
I know, right? And that's what I'm enjoying about it. Like all the great needle drops. I'm like, oh right, what a great song.
I wore I have 2 Milli Vanilli shirts, but George gave me one, and I was wearing it the other day, and I was like, I need like a sign that's like I liked Milli Vanilli before the Menendez series. Like I don't want to be like one of these people on like. I don't want people to think I'm one of these people on TikTok that just learned about
using their actual voices.
Yeah.
So I mean, because I've heard some of their music, and yes, I know that they're fake. I mean, some of it's good, and I'm familiar with the In Living Color parody that they did. That was very funny.
which is aged nicely. Like at the time, it was like, oh, that's mean, but you're like, oh man,
Did people really find it neat?
I think they did for sure.
Wow. Well, they don't have a sense of humor. I thought it was,
You know,
I thought it was great.
the Milli Vanilli documentary on Paramount Plus is pretty amazing. I've watched it twice.
It is really good. Yeah, it is. If you want to see like, I don't know, a teen boy like sued Milli Vanilli for like, I don't know, being deceived. And it's like, I need a documentary on that boy because I would like to know what he's up to.
So wait, there's a teen boy who like thought Milli Vanilli.
His mom probably like, you know, ushered this along. But I think she was like, they were suing because like, I don't know, pretenses or deception or something. It's like, those, like, I can't imagine. Yeah, I can't imagine. It's like, it's not that serious.
Yeah. It's like, get in line. You are not the only one deceived. You're not going to in this case.
Yeah. It's also not that serious.
No.
It's really not. But you know what? I mean, I know that one of the members is dead and still alive. And I know one of the members was on the Questlove Supreme podcast doing an interview about the whole experience. And you know, he seems to be pretty much at peace with what happened. And I'm glad that they're getting their flowers to that documentary because I think it was a fascinating story back in 1989. So yeah, there you go. But so you know what? It's been a fantastic time having you guys on this show. I didn't know that we would talk about like all these myriad of topics, but like, no, it's great. It's great. So, it's you're currently pending on what other shows you have coming up. I mean, take your break. Trust me, personally, you know, yes, there are days where I just absolutely hate podcasting. So take a break. You need it so you could still love this medium again. In the meantime, like, how can people find No Season 2 Pod on all the platforms and on your social media?
So we're basically our social media is basically Instagram. It's No Season 2 Pod, and I manage that because I don't trust George with like a password.
Why? What's wrong with George and passwords?
I think he'd get hacked. I think he'd definitely get hacked. So I don't trust him to manage that. But we post like clips of the show, and I make all these like, you know, photo like collage art for our episodes. We're not really on Twitter. I tried, but it's like too hard to go in there and like post.
Why would you do that to yourself? Why would you do that to yourself?
Yeah, we're on most podcasting platforms, so Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music. I'm sure there's like some random ones that we're on that I don't know about, but
Radio Public, Pocket Cast, like
it's probably like on like some random podcasting platform that I'm not sure how we got there, but we're on the big ones. And yeah, we love it when people like interact, like message us and comment.
Love that.
Yeah. So far no hateful messages, so that's good. Fingers crossed. I haven't pissed off anyone yet.
Not yet.
Well, nobody's like, that's kind of the cool thing is like, I think people who are listening to our podcast and enjoy the shows, but also see that some of these shows they're a little messy and they're not.
Yeah, some of the things haven't aged well.
Yeah, exactly.
And also weren't appropriate at the time either.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think the interesting thing about when we recap Family Matters is just looking at it from a 2024 perspective. Mm-hmm. And mainly, I mean, the Steve and Laura dynamic.
God.
I know, right? Yeah, it's like, oh, okay, this guy is just going after this girl constantly without her consent, and it's just okay.
It's like maybe cute for like the first time you see it. Like, okay, he has like a crush, and then after that, it's like, okay, restraining order. Like, Carl, you're an officer of the law.
Right. Exactly. It's like you're an officer and your daughter is just being non-consensually stalked by this boy next door and you're doing nothing about it. And the twist is that Laura eventually falls in love with him.
Yeah, it's if you listen to like songs and you watch like TV shows, it's like everybody is getting stalked. That's just like how they're like, I was like, oh yeah, it's like,
because on My So-Called Life, like Brian Krakow was just like obsessed with Angela, and there's like a scene of him like looking into her bedroom window with like his telephoto lens, and it's like,
oh my god,
get me out of here. Like,
Yeah, no, I think that
I don't think this was like cool in 94, and it's definitely not cool in
Right.
2023 to 24.
right.
But even music like Dave Matthews Crash, that's a song about stalking. Or
Ah.
The Police Wrapped Around Your Finger, that's a song about stalking. It's like it never ends, guys. It never ends.
I know. And look, I mean, we've personally gotten some flack on TikTok for our quote unquote like PC police ways, but I just find it to be an interesting conversation. I think if
Yeah.
you just blindly said, "Oh, this show is awesome, everything's awesome about it," you wouldn't have an interesting conversation. So I think just being able to like dive deep and look at things that just wouldn't be accepted well today or looked at differently today, I just think it makes an engaging conversation.
Yeah, and I don't think it like necessarily has to take away like your love of the show or how much you liked it or liked things about it. It's just recognizing that certain things don't hold up and don't, we don't need to see anymore, or
Right.
don't need to be part of the conversation in these shows anymore. And
Absolutely.
it's not like a dig on the show. It's just like a dig on, I think, at the time,
Right.
like recognizing that times were different and how we've evolved, and maybe some people haven't evolved. Just recognizing how things change.
Right. Two things can be true. I mean,
Yeah.
I could be critical of how Carl Winslow is putting too much pressure on his son Eddie. I could be critical about the toxicity of the Steve and Laura dynamic. But at the same time, I'm still saying, oh my God, Steve is hilarious in this moment. Steve is hilarious in that moment. Carl is funny in this moment, and he's heartwarming in that moment. I still have a great love for the show. So I think that two things can happen where you can love this childhood thing, but also be like, yeah, let's look at this and be critical of it.
And I think in our case, we can look at it and be like, okay, like at our very first episode, we talked about Joss Whedon and everything that went on with him. So like you can recognize that he's kind of like a terrible person and kind of gross and, makes bad choices. But you can also still like, the content that he created. You don't have to like stand for him. You don't have to like defend him at all costs to like a show or like something that he put out. You can be like, okay, yeah, he's like gross, kind of misogynistic and all of this, but I do like, this episode of Firefly or something. I don't think the two are like mutually exclusive. There is like the conversation of, separating the art from the artist, or separating, certain things to like enjoy a medium, because I don't know, it would be extremely hard to watch or listen to anything if there wasn't some sort of like cognitive dissonance happening while you're watching it. Like I love like Law and Order and all of that, but I recognize that there's problems with like policing and problems with their justice system. It's not like I'm like blindly, I'm just like, I'm watching to be entertained, but I also recognize the systems outside of the show exist and are great. So I think there's that.
Right. Speaking of Law and Order, I know they film in New York City. Do you guys frequently pass by where they film episodes?
So like recently they filmed a couple episodes like right near where I live, but it's always like 6 a.m. and it's like, I'm not
right.
No.
Like I'm not like, maybe if like Chris Maloney was out there, like if I knew for sure Chris Maloney or like Mariska Hargitay were out there, I would definitely I just want to be like an extra. Like
how about a dead body? I mean,
dead body. I'll be anything. I'll be anything on the show. Just
I mean,
there's a moment living in New York that like every comedian that was friends with in New York City, I was like, I was on an episode of Law and Order. I'm like, damn it.
It's a rite of passage. Film episodes all the time. Yeah, it's a rite of passage.
Time for us. There's still
there's still time.
And then I become an extra on Law and Order, and then suddenly I'm catapulted into being on Dancing with the Stars. That's I think I'll survive like at least a couple weeks on personality alone.
So would you be the dancing partner with Reginald Veljohnson?
Have you been watching?
Nah. All right. I love him, but I'm not a Dancing with the Stars person.
It was hard to watch him dance because
not good.
I mean, he is older and he has had like, I don't know, like knee surgery and stuff. Yeah. So the movements were few and far between.
Got it.
And it was kind of like, oh, my heart can't take this, because I like that's like my TV dad. you know?
Yeah. He's my favorite TV dad.
So like it was kind of like, oh, just like this is elder abuse. Like
Sort of.
love the show.
Yeah. I think there was a clip of like Darius McCrary, who plays Eddie, like he was greeting Reginald behind the scenes of Dancing with the Stars, and I think that entire clip, Reginald was sitting down, like the old man that you see at the nursing home who just doesn't move anymore.
It was tough. You don't want to see like people you love, like like celebrities you love or something, like getting older, and you're like, oh no, like the next Twitter post I see is gonna be like, or like Instagram thing. Whenever I see a picture of a celebrity, I'm like, oh God, who died? Who died?
Yeah. Usually if it's like one of the most trending topics on Twitter is just an actor that you haven't heard from in the past 20 years, it's like, oh my God, like what the hell?
Yeah.
Reginald.
It's like, oh no, yes. That's all we're asking.
Right. Yeah, no, separating the art from the artist, I want to bring back that point. I think it's so interesting because I'm in conflict with that. I was texting Andrew recently and I was like, oh God, I've just been loving Cosby Show clips on YouTube recently. I just think it's a really funny show. And I wish we could recap it, and I wouldn't be comfortable doing it because, of course, the lead star and what he did. Now Andrew, I mean, he's of the different mind where he feels like, we could still have fun with it and acknowledge that he's a terrible person. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's an interesting conversation. It's like, where
isn't it too much? One of the things that I've learned or noticed is like in the past like handful of years is like in a way, I think A Different World might have been a better show because it made going to college seem cool.
Yeah.
I never thought about like going to college and watching A Different World. It's like, man, going to college is pretty badass. That seems all right.
Then you get there and you're like, oh.
Yeah, this part sucks. The college part of college sucks.
Right.
But the whole college part of it, like, and that's, looking back on it now, I feel the same way about, like, I don't know, Janet Jackson and Michael Jackson records. I mean, like, Janet Jackson's got like 5 bangers in a row.
Right.
Michael Jackson's like first 2 records are pretty hot, but everything else you're like, I don't think I'm not into that.
Oh, wow.
So it's like being able to reevaluate some of these things. I'm like, I don't know if this might actually be better.
Okay. All right. I mean, I've never seen A Different World, so I can't evaluate that, but
it's so good. It's so good.
I've heard. I definitely have to dive into it. I think they might be doing a reboot of it, unsurprisingly. So, yeah.
I think it might be tough to do the Cosby Show just because of like, I think every episode you'd have to reiterate like, okay, he like drugged a bunch of, it's a reminder, he drugged a bunch of women, and so his moral high ground here in this episode is like,
he says weird stuff in episodes like, my barbecue sauce makes all the women go crazy. I'm like,
yeah, that clip has that clip has gone viral for unfortunate reasons. Yeah,
he's like, oh my Lord, what are we talking about?
I know. I mean, hey, look, if there was a reboot, it could be the other Huxtable family show where we see the other members of the family that aren't tainted by Bill Cosby's legacy. Yeah. Or as Andrew likes to call him, Pill Cosby, Pill Cosby. Yeah.
Bird.
I know. Well, you know what, George and Meaghan, thank you so much for taking some time out of your Saturday to talk with me. I mean, again, the No Season 2 pod, find it wherever you get your podcast. It's a fantastic listen. So far, if you love My So-Called Life and Firefly, like, dive in with these guys. I mean, they give very interesting takes on it. And I hope you guys get the rest that you need, and we hope that you come back soon with another show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us on. This was super fun.